Today,
Today,
we will be
we will be
interviewing
interviewing
syndicate writer
syndicate
Sam
writer Sam
TLT,
TLT,
aka the
aka the
Liberal
Liberal
Thumb. Sam,
Thumb.
thank you
Sam,
for
thank
being
you
here
for
today.
being here
How's your
today.
day
How's
been?
your day been?
My day has been good. I want to thank everybody for being here too. And I hope I'm not going to be answering technical questions.
Yeah, no worries, man. Today is all about getting to know you better, so we won't be asking too many difficult technical questions, but maybe we'll get a little bit personal. Who knows? But as Sam mentioned, thanks for being here, guys. We do appreciate you guys taking your time out of your day to learn more about the creators of Web3. It means a lot to us, and I'm glad to be here. Before we begin, if you have a second, please go down to the button on the bottom right and like, comment, and retweet on the space to get some more people in here to learn more about Sam. And other than that, we'll go ahead and get started. Sam, so what got you into Web3?
Hello?
Yeah, hello. Did you hear my question?
No. You
Oh,
faded a
okay, I cut
little.
off. That's my bad. Yeah, what got you into Web3, my man?
So, what got me into Web3? I think Web3 for me, actually, it has always been that unconscious society, unconscious aspect of life that I hear about it, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. Many times we get so engrossed with real life events. I was working, schooling, and stuff like that. But the moment I knew I started paying more attention to Web3 was, I think it was around December of last year. There was this viral news I read online about a dude selling an NFT for around a million naira or something in my currency. And I was like, I've heard this thing before and it's sounding crazy. Like, why would somebody buy a picture or PFP for like 1 million naira? It really doesn't make sense. But after a while, it took me a month later. Around that point, I forgot about everything. So at one point, I was going through my TikTok account and I came across JTC Josh. If you know Josh, he was doing he had one of his posts on TikTok about if you want to learn about NFTs, crypto, and stuff like that. So I felt like, okay, I've been hearing about it for a while. Let me just pay attention. So I followed him. I attended some of his lives, and it was making sense to me. He answered many questions I had at first, and I felt like, okay, let me join this community and stuff. But at that initially, I still don't know much about NFTs, crypto, whatever they call it, and the Web3 space. So along the line, I grew to understand that okay, it's more like a Web2 in another will I call it space, like another dimension, like Web2 in another dimension where I could bring all the skills I know, all the skills I have from the Web2 world and make it work for me in the Web3 space. So when I understood that, okay, it's more like we can, more digital than physical, then I felt like, okay, probably I should start transitioning from Web2 to Web3. So I would say what got me into this space was the opportunities I saw people having. Like it's not like the way we have it in Web2 where you have to hustle for some things. It's more like they recognize your skills over here. They recognize the fact that you are a creator. They recognize the fact that you have something to deliver. You don't have to write a CV or cover letter for somebody to recognize what you can do. So it's more like a community that appreciates your efforts, appreciates what you do. And I felt like this is where I wanted to be. So along the line, I just adapted to what I saw. I learned a few stuff and we're here right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a fantastic thing, right? Like, we come into Web3, and with the emphasis on community, it's a little bit easier to get into some opportunities, whether that be a writing opportunity or kind of content creation opportunity or moderation or whatever that might look like. Web3 is a place where it's accessible, right? Because before, you are perhaps limited by your qualifications or more specifically your geolocation, right? If you don't live in a certain city or you're not from a certain state or country, it really limited your options in Web 2. But in Web 3, we kind of break down those barriers. So no, I totally agree. I think that's fantastic. But one thing you did mention that did pique my interest is you mentioned that your kind of entry into Web3 really stemmed from a TikTok content creator. And I think that's one thing that's really interesting about your story because a lot of people end up, from my understanding and my experience, they come into Web3 through some kind of Bitcoin article or someone making $1 million or whatever, but you kind of came from this TikTok. So, what is your opinion and thoughts on the current state of TikTok, and how do you think that relates to either Web3 right now or the future of Web3?
Okay. For me, I will say, initially I came from the content world, the content creating world. I've done some works in the social media space, the advertising space. So TikTok being a global platform for creators, it's more like it's the way Web3 leveraged TikTok, the creates, the post, the ideas, whatever content is created, it's phenomenal, and it's in a way that if you don't pay attention to it, you might miss the important things that have been given out there. Because there are times where we always say, okay, whatever kind of content you start with, or whatever creator you like, the algorithm brings up more and more and more of that content. So, in my own perspective, it's more like I see TikTok being a driving force for Web3. The same way YouTube, the same way Facebook, Instagram did it. It's more like TikTok was like spearheading Web3 in a new dimension. Many people are on it, though. I'm still part of those people that believe that the number of people in Web3 right now is not yet to the level we want it to be. But I believe platforms like TikTok have done a lot to bring more people in. It's now the point where uh, we regard a content creator on TikTok more than we regard somebody on YouTube. YouTube being the initial platform that we used to go to for information. But now TikTok has now revolutionized the whole Web3 idea. It brought it to the way that they simplified it with the kind of content that they create. It's not like I have to go to YouTube and sit down for like a couple of minutes or an hour to get what you're talking about. I could just have bite-sized shorts on TikTok that just narrows the thing down and gives me the whole idea of what I am looking for, or what the content creator is talking about. So for me, TikTok is will be, I don't want to speculate, but I feel like in a few years we can still see more potential from TikTok in bringing people into Web3 spaces.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, especially as we everyone knows, really Web3 exists on Twitter, right? Whether this be projects or users or influencers, most of them we could probably comfortably say are on Twitter. And I think one thing that Twitter has shown us is bite-sized information is how the space is going to work, right? News posts in only 250 characters, or maybe informational articles in 250 characters. TikTok is just a video translation of that. And I think this is fantastic for the space because what this does is it increases accessibility, right? Because now, rather than having 15 minutes to explain a concept and maybe people get lost in the weeds, it has to be done in 60 seconds or less, right? So this is only a step in the right direction when it comes to content creation and accessibility, right? And that's the number one thing we need in this space is accessibility, ease of access. So I think that's fantastic. I did want to touch on something you mentioned, which is you said you kind of come from a background of content creation or you have some kind of experience there. So, what does your experience in content creation look like?
So I think this is my, like a few years ago, let's say 6 to 7 years ago, I started out as a social media manager. That was way back in the uni, and it got me to the point where I started learning about the digital space. I am this kind of person that I believe that if there's a traction in one way where the traffic is going to, and there's this whole hype about what the next big thing is and stuff like that, I tend to see it as an opportunity for myself. So I've always been creative, I've always been artistic, but I am this kind of blend, the if you can say the jack of all trade. I am the kind of person that I can go into any kind of faculty and just understand what is going on. But deep rooted in me, I am this kind of artistic kind of person. So I picked up content creating way back from, will I say secondary school, high school, the way you guys say it. So it's more like I've been writing for a while, designing. I can design. I'm a graphical artist. I can draw. I draw comics way back. I do anything artistic down to dance, music, songwriting. I write songs for a couple of artists, and it's more like it transitioned me into the professional lifestyle when I started getting jobs. So at the point where I started getting jobs, I felt like, okay, this thing is more like an hobby. I need to put more effort into getting certificates, getting noticed, because where I come from, it's more like they want to see your certificate. They want to see how professional you are. So I took some courses. I did a Google digital marketing course, a professional course. I have my certificate there. I did a lot of content marketing, and it propelled me from the stage of being a social media manager to the post of a content marketing manager. I worked as a content manager for an advertising company, Deverb, in Nigeria. I did a couple of content for Hennessy Artistry, Beluga, and a couple of them. So at one point, I felt like many of the things I know how to do was what pushed me into like, okay, I can do this, I can do that, but it's not it's not something that I should just be telling myself that I can do until when I do it professionally. So I felt like it was when I got into the labor market, doing it professionally with companies, organizations. I learned the deep rooted part of it, the professional style. It's more like when you get the way you used to know things. When you get into the professional life, they tend to teach you the lingo franco of whatever thing that you think you know. So it working in the professional life blended most of the things I know now. It's more like I am where I am today because of the experience and the people I met along the way. So content creation is more like a gift, an inborn gift, but I perfected it by learning the skill, learning how to use it, and collaborating with people by working with colleagues and stuff like that. So that's just how I got into content creation.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So it looks like you kind of found it on your own volition. You seem to be a very creative person since you were young, right? Like you mentioned, you would do
Yeah.
dance, you would do writing, you even did songwriting, which I think is awesome because I also do stuff like that, right? Freelance songwriting, it's totally fun. But that makes me very curious. So you seem to be a very creative oriented person, and this is kind of why you took that leap into content creation, social media management, and so on. What do you would what would you say is your favorite art form? Like, is it writing? Is it music, or what would you say?
For me, it was always music. I would say, like many of us when we were growing up, we were always having this mentality or this kind of dream in your head that you'll become a superstar one day and you do stuff like that. So for me, I started with music. I sing, I can write, I can sing, I can rap, and I it was at one point, there's this stage when you get to in your life that you feel like, okay, it's time for you to wake up. The kid is growing up to be a man. You need to start earning something for yourself and your family. That realization sets in. So I got to the point where I felt like, okay, if I keep saying I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and I don't push forward into it, it's more like I am killing myself. And I came from a country where if you don't hustle, you won't eat. It's just plain simple like that. So I I I I think I picked all the skills I know how to do. What I did is I already know the kind of skills I have. I know I'm this kind of fast learner. I can do things. I can dabble into many things from tech to arts to finances and business. So I felt like I went for the ones that I was comfortable with. Comfortable in the sense that I picked songwriting because I'm very good at songwriting. I can write a song and I sell it out to artists that needs it. I've written a couple of songs for some major music labels in Nigeria here, and I pushed from it into article writing. I did a few articles. Yeah, that was when I was into the advertising company. I did lots of articles because many times you have to do copywriting when you're creating a website. You do the copywriting for the brand you are working for. You you have to create the content that meets the that sets a standard for your search engine optimization. You need to understand that there's a way that contents are written and stuff like that. So for writing, I picked writing because it looks more professional and it gave me like an easy entrance into where I was going to professionally. But for music, music has always been an hobby that probably in the near future it might still become something professional. I don't know. But for what I just came to the realization like, dude, you need to start doing something to eat. You need to start doing something to provide for yourself. And what's the next big thing in the market that you can comfortably walk into? So I picked writing and I picked graphical design. So both of those things were one of the things that uh, made me blend easily when I started working because I'm this kind of guy that when I get to a place, I feel like if I know how to do it and I can support the colleagues and I can support my brand, it's something. So it gave me much leverage among my colleagues because I'll be that guy that you might see me doing the social media, you might see me doing the WordPress design, you might see me doing the Wix, you might see me doing the copywriting, the editing, writing or articles. So it's more like I engulfed a lot of things together. So I wouldn't say I am one way traffic, like just one way. If I know how to do it, I do it. If I don't know how to do it, I learn it. It's just like that. So writing for me, I would say it's not like I wouldn't say I'm comfortable like what I really like. What I really like is music. But when music was not paying the bills, music was not doing the things I want, I looked for the next comfortable thing I like, and that was writing. I used writing to get into content marketing, content creation, and designing, copywriting, and sales and marketing. And it also propelled it was one of the things that when I was doing it, I realized that okay, during the time I was doing that, I realized that okay, I can still transition into tech. So I started with website design, and it was more easy for me because I came from a design background. So I transitioned into tech, into website front end design and copywriting. So I got more jobs from knowing the creative side of writing and the technical side of design. So it's just something like that. So I don't really say, okay, I enjoy doing this. It's brother, it's what brings the money. I once I know that this is where the money is coming from, I connect everything together and I just go with it.
Yeah, for sure. It seems the hustle culture mentality is really, really at play. And I think it's really interesting. You mentioned you're the jack of all trades, and it really seems like you've made that come true, right? You have all these different skills, whether that be website front end design or graphic design or copywriting or songwriting. You really spread yourself across all these different disciplines. And what's interesting about doing that is you learn things from each one and they can apply to one another, right? So whenever you're doing something like graphic design, maybe you're more conscious about where you place things. Or whenever you're doing songwriting, you learn more about how to write things that have impact, right? And then that carries over to one another. So I'm curious, as you were learning all of these skills to kind of fit in with that hustle culture and be able to, as you said, get food on the table, what do you think was the hardest skill you learned and did it pay off?
Hmm. The hardest skill I learned. Well, each part of them have their technicality. Each skill, each job I ever went to had their technicality. So I feel like the one that I really felt like was really hard was when I was doing my IT study. I was doing an IT. I was trying to transition into IT, then into software engineering. So, coming from an artistic background, I had a little bit difficulty uh, understanding programming, coding, and stuff like that. So it was more like a wake up call where I felt like, okay, okay, it's like this, it's like this. You know, when you feel like, okay, I can do this, and you started doing it, and you have this epiphany, like, okay, it was not as easy as I thought it was. And the way YouTube made it sound like you can, they will give you this kind of advertisement where they say you can learn JavaScript in a week, you can do this in 7 days, you can do this. So it was when I started doing it, I realized that, okay, this is bullshit. You guys are just giving me crap. It was not as simple as it is. And I was trying to get into, okay, during the time I was doing my IT uh, courses and stuff like that, what made me go into IT was the fact that I wasn't making the kind of money I expected to make from the content side. I felt it got to the point where I realized that tech was really making a lot of money. And I am this kind of person, like I mentioned earlier. If I know I can do it, I will give it a try. So when I pushed myself towards it, it was not because I felt like, okay, I really want to do it. Though I was technical, I had this tech skills right from times. I know how to troubleshoot. I didn't need anybody to teach me how to troubleshoot. I just understood how a computer works and how stuff added up. But I felt like if I want to go into this line, I need to know the rudiments. I need to know the foundations and basics of everything. So when I got into it, I started saying that, oh boy, it's not as easy as they make it sound. So when I started my job as an IT administrator a few years ago, uh, I had difficulties because most of the people I know are more like the ones from the artistic side of the whole economy, the content creating, marketing, digital marketing, and stuff. I only had a few friends in the tech side, and they are always busy. It's not like you can get them to sit down and explain that, okay, this is where I'm having issues, this is why. So transitioning for me was the difficult part where if I have stuff I need to do for the content side, it was not more like technical like that because when you hit a wall, you can just relax, go for a walk, get some inspiration probably by listening to music, reading some people's articles and stuff like that. You can get inspirations to push forward. But when it comes to the technical part, it's more like you have to start Googling stuff. You go to Stack Overflow, you go to Quora, you go to different places looking for informations on how to just fix a bug. And I sometimes it was frustrating because I remember there was my first day on a job as an IT administrator. I was to connect a simple what's it called, scanner, a printer to the network. So I know how to do it, but along the line nobody explained. You know, I didn't start from the roots where they need to tell you that, okay, you need to know different kind of operating systems to know which kind of bugs you made or the kind of errors, what they mean and stuff like that. So I spent like 2 days to fix something I should have just done in 30 minutes. So at one point I almost gave up. I almost gave up at some point. But if you were to ask, if to answer the question and not just go into long stories, I would say the technical part of my job life and everything was the hardest for me because I can remember those nights where I had to sit up to learn C programming and the frustrating learning the list and everything. I can remember the hard parts of trying to uh, and to get an information that does exist and you still have to come back to fix a project and stuff like that. So it was some kind for me and it felt a little stressful because I was in a job at the moment and I was trying to get an education. So if I was to answer that question, that was it. Technical part for me. It's the technical part, the scientific part of the old job and everything.
Yeah, I feel that, dude. Whenever you mentioned there's a point where you're thinking about giving up because you were spending 2 days on a problem that should take 30 minutes. That really resonated with me because I had a similar experience, right? I learned a side hustle pretty recently, or I guess over the past year, which is Discord security. And to solve certain issues, it would take me days when it should really take me 30 minutes. And you really only learn that kind of stuff through failure, right? And understand and like kind of struggling through it and trying to figure it out on your own. But once you solve it that one time, you know how to solve it every other time moving forward. So it's always uh, inspirational to see how you've grown over time and looking back on, wow, that used to take me forever and now I can do it in 5 minutes, right? So I think that's fantastic growth. But one thing you were mentioning is you did make that transition from a more creative career and kind of skill set into a more technical one, right? You moved from this kind of art realm, which is more content creation, and into IT and programming and so on and so forth. So how did your lifestyle change as you made that kind of transition?
Yeah, okay. Um, it didn't really, I wouldn't say it changed. It's more like it evolved. If I was to explain better for the evolution, it's more like I already saw a connection between art and tech in the first place. There's there's this there's this rhythmic connection that they have where you can make the art. Okay, let me give you an example. Uh, for people doing the front end design of a website like a React JS and stuff like that, you can bring somebody that's into graphical design, a graphical artist, teach him React, JS, HTML, CSS. He already understands the design of the whole thing for a product banner, product designer, UI, UX designer, and stuff like that. They know the design, they have the art, but you now taught them the technical part by teaching them the React side, the HTML and everything. You combined the art with the technical part. So for someone like me that I already saw a connection before I even transitioned into it, I feel like if I hadn't seen the connection in the first place, I wouldn't have dabbled into it. So I saw a connection in it. Then I felt like, okay, I can connect this with this and just bring it together. So it was one of the things that helped me along the line because I I have this kind of intuition where I feel like, okay, if this can work and we can combine it with this, then let it work. So it is also one of the things that helped me to start my agency right now. I have an agency called Click Services. It's a tech and design agency, and it's more like we bring the whole creative design of writing, the whole creative design of animations, the whole creative design creating stuff in the art world, and we bring it into tech, where we hold brands. You help bring like the branding of a company, where you have to design their logos, design their website, design the apps that they use, design everything. So the connection between the art and the design was not more like it was not something I looked okay, it really changed my no. It didn't change. It's more like it improved the kind of way I used to think about stuff. It propelled me to start thinking about new ideas where things can fit into, where opportunities can be utilized and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say it changed me. I would just say it reformed my mentality, my way of thinking, and the way I do my things.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing a lot of people misunderstand about art and tech, or more specific, like coding or whatever kind of tech you want to think about, is there's inherently a lot more connection than you might believe, right? Parts of what you're doing is artistic. Like you mentioned, whenever you're designing a website or you're designing the front end or whatever that might be, there's inherently some kind of art involved, whether that be illustrating your brand or making something, improving the user experience, and so on and so forth. So I think it was really beautiful when you said it didn't change, it evolved, right? I mean, you can argue that the definitions are very similar, but I think that word is a better illustration of what a transition from a more artistic background in life into a more technical one really looks like, for sure. So I think that's really awesome, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned from something like that. So I'm gonna ask you one final question, and then wrap up the space. Um, but this has been an awesome conversation. It's really interesting to learn a lot about your story and the way you've kind of become Sam TLT, the person you are today. So my last kind of question for you in this interview is, if you could start over in Web3 and your digital presence, would you? And or is there anything you would change about the way you've done your Web3 kind of digital journey so far?
Mm. Okay. Yeah. And that's a deep one. If I was to change anything about my Web3 or start all over again, I think what I would do is initially when I came to Web3, I was silent. Though I like to observe before I start doing stuff, but I felt like I was too silent to the point where I missed out on a lot of stuff. And one of the things was I had I already knew some parts of what was going on in the Web3 space, but I was also like reserved, more like I understood that there are some faculties in Web3 space that you need to understand first before you move into them. Faculties in the sense that there's some people already in the game that you need to network. There are some there's a way that art is defined in the Web3 space that you need to adapt to. And there's a way that the things we do in the Web3 is not really like the way we do it in the Web2. So I felt when I came in, I took too long to transition. I should have just, okay, learned what I need to learn in a short space of time and start practicing. But I was more like, okay, I kept too quiet. I observed too long, and I felt like, okay, it didn't really put me in the places where I needed to be. Because at one point, I had people along the line, I had people later telling me that, oh, I've known you for a while. I didn't know you do such things. I don't know you do this and this and that. I said, I do it, but I didn't really announce it when I came in. So it was more like I won't blame myself in that part because I was going through some things in the Web2 space, in the Web2 world, in the real life. I was going through some personal things, so I wasn't really paying attention like that. But if I was to do something and start all over, I will I would say from the moment I saw the TikTok post from JTC, I would have just approached him and just like, hey bro, I'm coming from this side of the town. These are my skills. How will I use it in the Web3 space? What are the things I need to know to start work? But I didn't do that. What I did was I just blended with the community, kept quiet, and it was until I think there was a day where uh, somebody came to meet me. Okay, I did something for someone that got how will I say, the person told the other person like it was an art piece I did for someone, and it was more like I just did it a favor and stuff like that. So I did it for someone, and it kind of went into some circles where they started like asking like, okay, who did this, who did that, who did this, who did that, and it brought them back to like asking questions that, do you do this, do you design, do you write, do you stuff like that. So it was that at that point I started like, okay, I feel like I need to create a brand for myself in this space. The brand I should have created the moment I came in. It took me like a long while before I now started saying, okay, I need to create a brand for myself. Like the TLT behind my username, the label Tom, it's more like it has a meaning of itself. The meaning is I have the hands that can do things freely. I am not restricted to anything. I can adapt to anything I can do, and my hands can do more. So it's more like when I now came to Twitter. Twitter was not my first go-to app. I'm more like the Instagram, the Facebook. I have other apps I go to. So it was when I got into Web3, I took the time to start understanding Twitter. I took the time to understand the NFT community. I took the time to start understanding crypto itself. Then I took the time to start understanding how communities interact. So I felt like I took too much time to observe things than acting. That's the thing I know that if I was to start all over again, those are the things I will correct.
Yeah, that was a fantastic response. It really kind of came in full circle. It explains the the deeper part of your name, right? The liberal thumb and how you use your hands freely. I think that's really really awesome, and I think a lot of people would agree with you, right? They wish they started their Web3 growth and their brand development and kind of professional journey a lot earlier, right? I had my Twitter account for months and months and months, and I was inactive. I kind of just lurked. I didn't post anything. I wasn't active in spaces. So I think I and a lot of other people can relate to that. And I'm glad I asked you that question because hopefully we can help some other people start their journey a little bit earlier, take risks, learn from experience, and learn from failure and be who they want to be. But Sam, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you answering all of my questions and us getting to learn a little bit more about you. Do you have any closing thoughts you want to give?
About closing thoughts, it's not more like, okay, I would say I am grateful for where I am today. Being part of syndicates is one of the things I'm grateful for because it's more like I am starting to see a part where I felt like, okay, I should have kept quiet. I remember the day you came in and okay, that they announced it on the syndicates that okay, if you have a skill that you can do. Initially, what I was coming there to come and say was, okay, dude, I can do a moderator, I can be a community manager and stuff like that. But when they announced that okay, they were looking for writer, writing for me was more like I always had this idea that writing is what you do, just make your money and get out. I've done some freelance writing in the past where I I used to give up my IP rights to whoever I write for. So it's one of the things that I didn't really enjoy because when I see my article on a place and another name at the bottom of the article, I feel bad about it because I know that this was what I took time to develop, I took time to create. So I it really pushed writing back. Uh, I didn't really put mind into writing like that. But since you guys brought it out again, more like you gave me a platform to write. Like the thread I wrote was more like I haven't written thread in a long while, and I remember during the time I was writing it, and I felt like wow, there were a lot of things I was discovering during the time I was taking researching different artists and trying to understand their own side of the view and what I want to write down. So it brought back a lot of memories. It brought back a lot of things I need to do. Right now, I feel like from being a writer for Syndicate, I have seen two other engagements uh, from just being a writer and branding myself as a writer. I've gotten two other engagements in this space. So I feel like along the line, I will start to come out of my shell to push forward to be better. And that's one of the beautiful things I'm appreciating, I'm grateful for. And I just want to say thank you for inviting me to the space and nothing more. Thank you.
Sam, thank you so much. I love hearing that. One thing we really care about in Syndicate is creators and helping people grow and learning and just being a better person. So I'm really, really happy to hear that from you. And I hope we can inspire more people like you to take a leap or learn more or kind of rediscover parts of themselves. So thank you so much for your time. I do
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming out here and chatting about this kind of stuff. We will be writing an article about this as well. So I've taken notes during the meeting, and I'll probably be shooting you some DMs for a little bit more information. But we are glad to have you. So thanks again,
Thank
everyone, for being
you.
here. Uh, sorry, did you say something?
No, I just said thank you for inviting me once again.
Yeah, of course, brother. Anytime. Hopefully, we'll have you again in another couple weeks or so we can kind of catch up on what's been going on in the meantime. But thanks again for being here, everyone. And I will be closing the space. We will have another space tomorrow with a different creator. So I hope to see you guys around. So thanks again, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Same to you. Take care.